Alright, so this is going to be a tomato review on the white Tomesol. And when I say tomato review, I mean uno, literally one tomato. I don't really have anything more than what you see here. I think I may have gotten one other tomato off that plant, but that was it, just one tomato this year. But this one produced a very beautiful example of what a white Tomesol should look like. So I figured, you know what? Let's do a review on it and show everybody what the white Tomesol tomato looks like and do a taste test. So let's show you the tomato first. As you can see, it's a beautiful bone color, but this tomato can be quite bright, almost on the white side, when it starts to turn white. So it goes from green to white and then to yellow. So again, when you first get the tomato and it first starts going over to that white color, it's going to look kind of like this. Kind of got that whitish color. And then it's going to get like a bone, creamy color to it like that. And then it's going to slowly, that bone color will darken more as the tomato ripens. So it will get to a point where it does get kind of a deep bone color. But this is one of my favorite tomatoes. I've been growing this tomato now for 10 years. This is one of my long-time tomatoes I've been growing since I moved up here 10 years ago. I bought like 30 packs of different varieties of seeds, and this was one of them. I've pretty much been growing it almost every year for the last 10 years. Missed a couple of years here and there in between, but pretty much always grow this tomato. I have always liked this tomato. I think 1 or 2 years in between here and there, the tomato didn't meet my taste satisfaction. So I may have let it go to next year and focused on other varieties. But for the most part, the white Tomesol has always been my favorite white tomato when it came to white tomatoes. Now, I've grown a lot of white tomatoes. I've grown the white queen, the white shark, white teeth, the white this, white. I've grown them all. So this is definitely by far one of my favorites. Let's show you what the inside looks like. And it's a very, very juicy tomato. As you can see around the edges, the seeds are not attached to the rind, but don't let that fool you with this tomato. It does happen sometimes. Sometimes that could just be overwatering. And in a way, that's kind of a good thing because you know that your tomatoes won't split because it's too tight on the inside. You have room for expansion when you got a little air gap in there. All right, so I'm kind of starting to like hollower tomatoes more than tomatoes that are just gonna burst open and skin splits. So this tomato won't split if you see it like that, but you can see the inside of this tomato. It's just beautiful. I've always loved the white Tomesol tomato, but we're going to do a bricks on it right now. This tomato is a Solanum lycopersicum. It's an indeterminate tomato, and it is a regular leaf tomato. It's a very hardy plant. In fact, that's one of the few plants in my greenhouse still growing like it's green on it and stuff. So it's still doing pretty good. While most of my other plants are already fading away, they're dying off, the leaves are turning yellow, this one's still bumping. Very soft, very juicy. Alright, so this is 6 on the bricks. Again, I told you with beefsteak tomatoes and larger tomatoes, between 4 and 8 being the highest is the number you want to shoot for when it comes to the bricks. This is 6, so it's not that far from the top. Let's give this one a slice. Absolutely delicious tomato. It has, the thing about this tomato is even if the sweetness and the tangy part are off, that tomato flavor that comes from this tomato is so rich that you don't need tangy, you don't need sweet. Just the flavor of that tomato it's so good. I really love the flavor of this tomato. As far as tanginess goes, I'm going to say tangy's up around 31% this year, 32%, kind of up there. Sweetness was relatively okay. I'm going to say maybe 28 on the sweetness. Wasn't that high, but it was enough for, to keep you in the tomato. But that tomato flavor, God, if I was to put that on a number, I'm going to say 70 on that number. That number, that tomato flavor was really high. It's still in the back of my tongue. It's drawing me right now. Look, I'm looking at that other half right here, and I got to have another piece because it's one of those tomatoes that got that aftertaste that draws you back in. This tomato's always had that ability. I've had years where the flavor was off on them as far as like the sweet and tangy offset, but the tomato flavor just never, it always got that great tomato flavor. And of course, even if a tomato is awkward in flavor, and when I say awkward, it's imbalanced, you don't know which way to go with it, it's just, it's just not well-tasting tomato. Once you put it into a sauce, that kind of all goes out the window. Because then the tomato sauce, it really, a lot of that balances out and blends, and it smooths itself off. Whereas when you eat tomatoes raw, that tomato better be on its top game, because you're going to taste every little aspect of it. Once you turn it to sauce, that kind of goes out the window, just so you know that. So just because a tomato may not taste, perfect to you if you eat it raw, it's when you make a sauce out of it, most of that goes out the window. So if you're making sauces, in other words, don't judge it by eating it raw. Though, if you get tomatoes that taste really good raw, you can't imagine how good they're going to taste as a sauce. I'm telling you, the white Tomesol, like if I was to rate the white Tomesol in the white tomato range, white Tomesol has always been number one in my book. It's always been. I've tried a lot of white tomatoes, all kinds. And none of them, I can never get the flavors to come in on that flavor zone just right. With the white Tomesol, it always comes in no matter what I do. Even if plant gets sick and dies, doesn't matter. I always get delicious tasting tomatoes from the white Tomesol. I'm not sure why that is, but something about this tomato is just, whoever created it really, really did do a good job on getting a absolutely delicious flavor delivery from that, in my opinion. And I'm going to do this one day. I just don't have the time now. I'm selling the house, and so I don't really have the time to mess with it. But what I'm going to do, or in my opinion, I'm going to make a white pizza with this tomato. And that means I'm going to make it with white tomato sauce, regular bread, white bread, and we're going to make it with, cheese, white cheeses. And the whole thing's going to be white. So I am going to do that in the future. It's just right now I don't have the time to do it. And I don't have enough tomatoes. You need at least a dozen of these just to get enough sauce to put on a pizza. So it's going to take a couple of years for me to get this tomato right, grown to where I get enough tomatoes off it and I can make the sauce. And I'll do a video for you how to make a white pizza, a true white pizza. Again, this is definitely a tomato to grow if you're looking for something new. You want to start moving into the white tomatoes. This is it, guys, right here, white Tomesol. And I tell you, I've got all kinds of white tomatoes. I have seeds. I don't even want to grow them, really. I mean, I grow them just so I can offer you seed for them, but I don't really grow them for myself so much because I do eat a lot of my own tomatoes. But when it comes to white tomato, it's even a lot of red tomatoes. This beats out a lot of red tomatoes. The flavor just throws you off. It's such a good tasting tomato. It's just strange. Like, you look at it, it's white. You think it's going to be taste like bland, right? Wrong. This tomato will deliver one of the best tomato flavors. Even now, it's like I want to eat this last piece. It's very moist. Man, that flavor of the tomato, wow. It's got a good flavor. It's unique to itself. It's kind of tarty, but that tardiness combined with the flavor of this tomato, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just addictive. It's just the flavor just sticks on the back of your tongue and it makes you come back for another bite. It's one of those tomatoes, I'm telling you. This tomato rock and rolls every year for me, no matter what. So definitely pick up seed for the white Tomesol. Definitely give it a grow. You might want to give it a little attention if it's your first year growing your environment. So you might have to grow for 1 or 2 years before you start getting the tomato plant climatized so it dials into your environment. And then you'll get really, really good production from it. So definitely give this tomato a try. I highly recommend it. It's one of the few tomatoes I can't emphasize enough goodness about it. So that's it. That was your tomato review for the white Tomesol. This will be the last year I'm going to review this tomato. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.